Hey everybody, Joe Stauffacher here. Today I'm interviewing Eileen Karpfinger. She's a chiropractor in California that I met when I was in Portland at the Float Conference. And she's working with a pretty cool product that we'll get into. But first, let's start with a little bit of her background, I guess. It was fun getting to know her because right away I found out she's from Wisconsin. Woohoo! So, Eileen came over to our booth and introduced herself like right away as we were getting going. We were there with doing the biomats and lymph and wellness pro sessions, and then we started talking about why she was there for her CBD product, which was pretty interesting, and I was fascinated by it because it's like 10 times the absorption of other CBD products that are out there on the market. But I found my real passion for why she was there when I walked over to her table later on. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So Eileen, like, how did you become a chiropractor? Like, share a little bit of your story.
Hmm. Well, I was traveling around the world for a couple of years after college, graduated from UW Milwaukee. And I was traveling around the world and I heard myself say, I'm going to be a doctor. And I was like, I was not the most academically inclined person. I was a music major to begin with, graduated with a psychology degree. Then I was like, okay, I guess I'll be a doctor. So I come home, I start doing my prerequisites out in California. I followed a boyfriend out to California and doing my prerequisites. And I met some chiropractors who were from Wisconsin and found out, long story short, that I've been a chiropractor my whole life. The first premise of chiropractic is what made the body heals the body. And I've been living that way for a good 15 years before that. And so when it came down to medical school or chiropractic school, where medical school is focused on pharmaceuticals and chiropractic school is founded on the body's innate wisdom, I was like, that's who I am. So I went to chiropractic school then, and I graduated in 1999. And I've been in practice with my husband, who I also met in chiropractic school, so we're both chiropractors. And we've been going along since then.
Awesome. So that's like 19 years or so of chiropractic experience. What is it? What is I'm a big chiropractic fan as well. I've been started seeing the chiropractor when I was a senior in high school, junior in high school, as I kind of was hitting some growth spurt stuff. And then not until after college did I start seeing the chiropractor again. But now, I'm there once a week or every other week, or the longest in the last like 10 years that I've gone without seeing a chiropractor is maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of that. I love the innate wisdom and stuff like that. So is there any tips that you've kind of like learned through the years that you can share?
Sure. So prior to chiropractic school, I was helping people detox. So I've been helping people detox and cleanse for about 25 years now. So consider myself a functional medicine doctor as well as a chiropractor. And during the early or mid 90s, when I was in LA doing my prerequisites for chiropractic school, there were a number of men coming to me that were falling prey to HIV and had AIDS. And back then, they were dropping like flies, dying from this disease. And they were coming because they knew that I was doing some great work with detoxing, and they wanted to detox. And I quickly learned they were too weak to detox, and I had to help them in another way. And so I learned and became an expert at working with probiotics in a means, and this is in the 90s when there wasn't a word about this yet, learned about probiotics and how to effectively really flood the system and help the body through that. And while I was doing that, then I went to chiropractic school, I became a chiropractor with the knowledge of detoxing and with the knowledge of probiotics and effective natural nutrition. And I learned pretty early on that there's not a one thing fits all that works for everybody. But it did take me a little bit to get that. So I was doing a detox with people called Arise and Shine, which is, they've just come back around, and I do think it's a good detox. But I was doing that in the mid 90s and helping people, and everybody went on that, no matter how old you were, no matter how healthy you were, except for people that were super, super, super compromised, like people with HIV. And those people needed to do something different. Since then, I have learned of Ayurvedic detoxing and juice fasting and, intermittent fasting, and, how to watch glucose levels, not just insulin levels, things like that, looking at insulin demand. And along the way, I think I've learned to sit back, both my husband and I, to sit back and watch every fad that comes through with nutrition and with studies and things like that, and take them from a place of the broader scope of things, so that I understand that I'm not just bringing my patients to the newest fad and then over here this newest fad, because the pendulum swings, right? We're about to witness the pendulum swinging back from the what's the caveman diet called?
Paleo.
The paleo back to center again. I mean, there's a lot of things showing up right now that we're eating too much protein in these high protein, high fat diets, and coming back to balance with maybe not as much protein, increasing your leafy greens instead of your carbohydrates, but maybe not as much protein because our body can only use so much. That's just an example of where society is right now in that fad world. And so I think I've learned along the way to just not rush off and look at the newest science as God. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I've just been kind of an observer of health since I was like 16, and I was always trying to gain weight and put on weight to play basketball. I just wanted to be bigger and whatnot. And here I was, I know now that then I was just nutritionally deficient. I couldn't absorb any nutrition. So it didn't matter what I ate.
Right.
Like I wasn't absorbing anything. So yeah, and then, I like it that you bring up Ayurvedic, because that's where, my background tends to go to. Dr. Dillard's been a huge influence on me, and, helping to understand these different components. And I too have kind of learned along the way that, there's not a one thing works for everyone type approach, right? Like every individual has their thing. But at the same time, I've kind of learned that everybody has certain organs and their body processes a certain way. And so there's kind of like this linchpin that I had learned from Dr. Dillard, in terms of, my business is Lymph for Life. So, we're focused on helping people detox their lymph system and their lymphatic system. But I found that if they're not getting that, if they're getting the lymph moving, but none of the toxins are moving out of their body, then they have a problem. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm big into the Ayurvedic detoxes and all the intermittent fasting, everything that you said. Yeah, there's a lot of the times it's a combination of all of those things, right?
Right. And just think of like our biggest problem right now is metabolic syndrome. Pre-diabetes is at epic proportions right now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
What is the precursor to any diabetic pancreas issue is liver. Liver stuff is always going to be a problem before the pancreas is having problems. And so if you've had your gallbladder removed, it's very likely that you're going to be diabetic soon after that, just because the gallbladder and the liver have to do their work before the insulin receptors and all that and the pancreas can handle it. And so I completely agree with you. And it always start with the liver, always start with the lymph doing its job, and then having the liver do its job for them.
Yeah, because from the Ayurvedic perspective, they always treat the lymph because you got to have things moving. right? But everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. So I walked over to your table and I saw this liver detox product. And in my own business, sometimes when I talk to people about the Ayurvedic detox, like 2 weeks to go through a cleanse for some people that's a big commitment with the day in and day out things of everything that is involved from an Ayurvedic perspective.
Yeah.
From tongue scraping and oil pulling and lymphatic massage and
Yep.
the list goes on, right? So that gets to be like, I'm talking with someone and I'm throwing up this information on them and they're like, whoa, like I can't do all that. Like that's too much. Right. And so when I saw this liver product, I was just like, that's something people can do. So let's talk about this liver product.
Great. Can I share my screen with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I have there we go. Let me put this up. Can you see that?
Yep.
So the company I work with is called Prime My Body. The company we work with is called Prime My Body. And there's a guy named Dr. Shade who created this detox. Interestingly enough, Dr. Shade is a chemist who, before being a chemist, was a biodynamic farmer. And what's interesting is when he went into work on his doctorate, he had figured out a way to test for heavy metals in the body that he ended up patenting. And his patent is still there and he still uses it. It's called a mercury test. But while in school, he knew this, he had this test and he could take, it takes 3 different places. It takes samples from you, hair, blood, and stool, I think, or urine, I forget which one. And then from there, where the metals or glyphosate or mold is sitting in ratio, and the ratio is the big thing here, where it's sitting in ratio is where he knows what kind of toxin it is and what amount is sitting there and where it's sitting. So the neat thing is, back in school, he was able to see that. Then he would detox people, test them again, and see what was left. And so now, fast forward 12 years, this guy's got a detox that he's been working on for all these years. Even just 8 months ago, this detox wasn't as forward as it is now. So what I did 8 months ago was a detox that had 8 different bottles of these liquids that are right here, and then this binder after it. But these 8 liquids, he's got it down to 1 bottle, and that's pretty brilliant. It means that we can do this detox pretty easily. Because I have this slide up, I can't see you, Joe. Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, great. And can you see this detox?
Yep.
And can you see my little arrow spinning around?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let me show you. The detox system is a 2-step detoxification protocol. And what's really cool is Dr. Shade made this detox in a way that it has a liposomal delivery of this liquid. So you put this liquid under your tongue, leave it sit there for about 30 seconds, and then it digests into the mucous membrane, into the bloodstream, as well as swallowing it. Once you swallow it, it does its work in your stomach. And what's impressive is that, again, like you and I know, Joe, you can do a detox and it can wipe you out. But this detox is meant to be done so that you can live your life. So it doesn't mean go eat at what would be Culver's and have French fries and onion rings and a malt made out of frozen custard. Eat organic food and try to be smart about the foods you're eating, especially the fats that you're eating, to make sure that they're healthy fats. But other than that, you get to live your life where you can still drive your kid to soccer, you can still go to work and not be a raging, emotionally raging person, or be so tired that you're not even able to show up. This detox can be done really gently. And here's the thing, here's what we have. We have a liver clear, which Dr. Shea just calls his liver sauce. And it's a bitters. Anybody know what bitters is already? Bitters is something that a lot of cultures have done. It's something we do, even just drinking coffee as an aperitif after dinner is a bitters that you're doing to help stimulate the liver. And so in this case, Liver Clear, his liver sauce, stimulates digestion. It boosts the liver and gallbladder and kidney function, promotes healthy bile flow, and offers broad microbial balance action. The reason it does that is that once the liver purges into the middle gut, it acts as like a soap in the middle gut, and it purges all the stuff out of the middle gut that doesn't need to be there, and that creates the broad microbial balancing, which is cool. So Liver Clear is made up of solidago, gentian, myrrh, dandelion. That's what's in there. A few other lovely things that are part of his own special formula. But it's mostly just a basic bitters that's going to stimulate the liver. And you do that, and then a half hour later, you take this powder. It's a black powder that has activated charcoal. It has IMDs, which is intestinal metals detox. It's a proprietary blend. It's got bentonite chitosan, which is a non-allergenic, just so you know, it's not vegan. It's a non-allergenic shellfish derivative. So it's a derivative of shellfish that does a good job of binding. And then along with that, he adds some aloe vera to just make sure it's going through easily. And what this is doing is a half hour later, you're capturing everything that you just purged right out of your liver. So it's just really super simple. Why the heck somebody didn't figure this out long ago, I don't know. But this detox, the way it's timed, where you do this Liver Clear first, and then a half hour later you drink this liquid, and it captures everything that you poured out into the gut, and it just pulls it right out into the toilet. And now you don't have the retoxing effect that most people get when they're detoxing that makes them feel so awful. So it's this nice, it's this really nice blend of purging and capturing. And you do that once a day, or you can do it twice or 3 times a day. You can double up the dose 3 times a day. Those are the 4 different levels of it. And it's something that I mentioned earlier, you want to do only at the level that feels comfortable for your body. Always pushing it to the edge of what's comfortable, but being comfortable. What else can I tell you about this?
Well, one thing I just want to touch on real quick is when on the previous slide talking about the bile, right? I just want to make that connection for people listening, that it's the bile, having that bile flow, and then having your lymph flow. The bile is what's taking the stuff into the stools and taking it out of you.
Right, and that's probably what I meant to tell you, is that the way Dr. Shade talks about detoxing is something that's really simple for me. I like the way he describes it. There's the micro detoxing that all of our cells do. Our cells have a way. He talks about a really cool study, a study that must have been hard for these cells, but he talks about toxicity being a level, a threshold that we cross over into toxicity, but that there's no chemical that our body, I'm sure there's some chemicals that if our body took them even at the smallest level is toxic, but things are not toxic. They are only toxic at a toxic level. And so everything before toxic level is just a chemical, is what he says. And so he says that in a cell, he just talks about this study where he took a dish floating with cadmium, which is this very difficult heavy metal to detox, and put a line of cells in there. And these cells were floating around in this metal. And what's interesting is if those cells had enough glutathione and glutathione transferase, which is an enzyme activity, to just push the stuff out of the cell, it just sat there swimming in this bowl of cadmium. If it didn't have the glutathione and the glutathione transferase, it died in the bowl of cadmium. because it just took over its capacity of being able to detox. So as long as there was this nice method of, nope, we're just getting it out, getting it out, getting it out, getting it out, that's the difference between a healthy cell and a not healthy cell, is the ability to take toxins out. So where do those toxins go? They go into the lymph system and into the blood. And then those things go into the liver. And then from there, the macro detox is having the liver action. The way Dr. Shade talks about this detox is that he's just assuring right directionality for the liver. Because if the liver is stopped up, all the activity that that cell is doing and all the activity of the lymph processing all over the place is just like running in place. There's nothing happening. It can't go anywhere. It's going to sit in there. So you need the liver turnstile to be going in the right direction to allow for the body to truly heal. And so if you want to know a little bit more about the micro detoxing out the cell, you can take a glutathione product as well to help get it out of the cell. But that's happening automatically if you have a decent enough cell process. And then this is most of the work, is what the liver has to do to get it out of the cell, to get it out of the body.
Yeah, I just love it. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
I'm trying to get off this page now. I don't know how to do it. There we go. I think I can now.
So then the next piece to the puzzle here is like our endocannabinoid system that the human body has. And when I'm usually talking about cannabis, I like to remind women that the other place besides a cannabis plant that you get cannabinoids is in human breast milk.
Oh, you get it way more than just there. Yeah.
They're growing the little children, and they're like, here's your endocannabinoid system. And so, I mean, CBDs has become the big rage, right? In terms of like changing your health and getting it in. And I just find the whole plant to be a complete superfood. But explain how the CBDs benefit the liver cleanse.
Yeah, so Dr. Shade speaks pretty specifically about while you're detoxing, you can up-level your detox abilities by using a phytocannabinoid like CBD. Phyto means plant, plant-based cannabinoids. So our body makes endocannabinoids. Endo means in our body. We make 2 endocannabinoids, and those endocannabinoids go to work as this system in our body called the endocannabinoid receptors. That system that's there, I've termed the mother system of all the other systems. And so this system's job is to just make sure all the other systems are working well. The nervous system, the endocrine system, which is your hormones, the immune system, the gut, the cardiovascular system, the lymph system. It's making sure everything is working well. And so it's just this extra helper for your body when it's doing its work. So if you're challenging your body in any way, which we all are on an everyday basis, using a phytocannabinoid to nourish this system is always going to be helpful. So I see as a practitioner, when I see people, most people are working on some challenge. It could be a physical challenge, a chemical challenge, which is also physical, an emotional challenge, or so a physical, a lot of people have like a car accident or a sports injury thing, a chemical imbalance, or an emotional stressor. All 3 of those stressors can be helped with the endocannabinoid system being in balance. And so just in this case, working with detoxing, whatever detoxing you're doing, using an effective hemp oil, which is one of the phytocannabinoids, can only help your detox. It's going to keep you in homeostasis so that your detox is smoother. It's just going to be a nicer ride.
Lovely. I love it that you call it the mother system.
Yeah, I was calling it the big sister. I was calling it the big sister of all the other systems because it really is pretty helpful. And then when I started looking at the research, I'm like, hell no, this is This is not just a little bit of a helper. This is a mama. This is something, I mean, in some cases, life or death. If your endocannabinoid system is working, it can be life or death for certain conditions for it to have that working. And so, yeah, that's the mom. That's not the big sister. That's the mom.
And that just goes so hand in hand with me talking about the breast milk connection.
Yeah. Well, you know, the greatest concentration of CB2 receptors, there's 2 receptors in the body for endocannabinoids, the CB1 receptor and the CB2 receptor. And the CB2 receptors, the greatest concentration of them are in a woman's uterus.
That blew my mind when you said that in Portland.
And the second greatest concentration is in the ovaries. Men have it in the testes as well. And then it is impossible for sperm to enter an egg without cannabinoids being present. And it's impossible for the egg, the fertilized egg, to implant on the uterine wall if THC, the psychoactive part of marijuana, is occupying the CB2 receptors instead of anandamide, which is a natural one. And so you want to use a natural source, hemp, marijuana, chocolate, turmeric, leafy greens, echinacea. These all are phytocannabinoids. But the one that has the most CBD without the THC and without any other things is hemp. And hemp has a really good high concentration of CBD, which does most of the work. There's some really cool studies right now, as an aside, showing that THC, which is a psychoactive part of, you know, how you get high, it's definitely beneficial for the body, but it's most beneficial when CBD is around. So it's like CBD is keeping it in line and making sure it's being effective. If CBD is not there, it just tends to goof off. So it's interesting.
And THC, the plant is only psychoactive when the THC is heated.
When it turns from THCV to THC or THCA to THC, yeah.
So and that's the heating process of it. So like a lot of times when I'm talking about eating the leaves and stuff like that, like some people just associate it, you know, because
with getting high. Yeah, there's real great benefits to juicing full plant, and I love that. I love that because if you're juicing it and not cooking it, you're getting a lot of the cannabinoids that wouldn't even be there once you heat it. So
right.
Cool.
Now I'm jealous of you living in California and I'm in Wisconsin.
You can go inside.
Right. So, well, thank you for joining me today and helping, go through this process and explain these things, because I just really think this liver detox product, along with the CBDs, is just so great for the people who come to Lymph for Life. So I really appreciate this discussion.
It's a pleasure. And just to remind people that this detox, I have a bunch of family in Wisconsin, and they're in the same position that you seem to be in, where they're like, oh, Eileen, I don't want to do all those steps. This is such a simple detox. I have a 9-year-old daughter that can take it takes a teaspoon of this liquid, and a half hour later, she takes this black charcoal, which tastes like water, drinks it down, perfectly fine in the day. And this kid is a normal kid. Like she's never had a Twinkie or anything like that, but she's definitely somebody who would love to eat, a bowl of Fruit Loops if I'd let her, It's a simple detox, and it's really great. It's a great step for people to be able to take and do gently over a course of time.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Joe.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.